River Valley civilizations. Here we are in the Indus River Valley of India. The geography of India had mountains to the north and south, and monsoons, or the seasonal winds, to the east. The northeast part of the country was wintry and dry. The southwest was summer, heavy rain, a lot of flooding. India is a peninsula. It is surrounded by water on three sides. The ancient civilizations of ancient India were very well planned. The two great cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were very well planned, had sewer systems and brick homes. You can see here from the picture, these ruins still exist. You can actually go visit them and pretend you're an archaeologist and hopefully find something pretty cool. This indicates that they had a strong central government. How does building a city indicate that an area has a strong central government? What happened? The civilization disappeared. Historians have several theories, but no absolute answers of why these cities just crumbled. Invasion, climate change, an earthquake that changed the river. The economy was based on farming and trade. Evidence indicates that the Indus civilization traded with Mesopotamia. They traded food and cotton cloth or textiles for precious stones. The Aryans lived in India, and they were nomadic warriors. If you remember, nomads meant they moved with the food. They never settled down. They had a very strict social system, and it was the basis for the caste system. There was no social mobility, and the Hindu writings were known as the Vedas. You can see here from the picture that the caste system, you have the gods on top, the Brahmin, were right below the gods. These are the priests and the more educated people. Then you had the warriors and the kings, the merchants and the landowners, the Sudra were the commoners and the peasants and the servants, and finally the very bottom part of the social system, and you can see they're not even attached in any way on this chart, were the untouchables. They were also known as the casts out, the outcasts of the caste system. They were the street sweepers, they were the latrine, or basically bathroom cleaners. And they were called the untouchables or pariahs because they had such awful jobs. They often got very bad diseases that were contagious. So people literally would not want to touch them because they were afraid they would get sick. Buddhism started in ancient India, and it was started by a guy named Siddhartha Gautama. He is the actual first Buddha. He was born to a wealthy Hindu family, and he sees lots of people suffering. And so he leaves his family and walks for 7 years to find these answers. Through meditation, he finds them. When he spreads his ideas, he is called Buddha, which means the enlightened one. Part of his teachings were the Four Noble Truths. All life is full of suffering and pain and sorrow. The cause of suffering is desire or your wants. The way to end your suffering is by giving up all your desire or wants, and the way to give up desire is to follow the Eightfold Path. These Four Noble Truths actually, if you look at it from a common sense point of view, are actually pretty true. If you ask people why they're sad or why they're angry, they're going to tell you it's because they want something they can't have. Maybe it is a boyfriend or girlfriend that's not interested in them. Maybe it's an 80 on their social studies test, but they didn't get an 80 because they didn't study or listen to Mrs. Velarde. Those kind of things happen. If you want something and you don't get it, you're going to be sad. Compare and contrasting the two, Hinduism and Buddhism. Hinduism came along first. It's a polytheistic belief system, meaning belief in many gods. It has the caste system, and they believe in reincarnation. Buddhism does not have the caste system. It has nirvana, where anybody can reach the inner peace. Anybody can basically have that inner peace, where with Hinduism you can't. You got to be reborn into it. And Buddhism, individual determines your life, where with Hinduism the caste system does. But they all believe in reincarnation and karma, meaning what goes around comes around. If you give off bad energy, you're going to get back bad energy. If you give off good energy, good things are going to happen to you. To live life simplistically, meaning a simple life. You don't need a lot of materialistic items. And the whole idea is to get release from the cycle of reincarnation. And all of them, believe it or not, are non-violent. They're not supposed to like violence. The Muera Empire started in 324 BC, and it was an empire based on power and fear. He was not a nice guy. He controlled the empire using a lot of army and using elephants and chariots to intimidate people and to fight them. Ashoka was the grandson of one of the greatest Indian rulers. He was very violent and expanded his empire until he found Buddhism, in which case then he stopped with the violence. He preached non-violence and peace, and he expanded his trade into China and Japan, and he built many Buddhist temples and sent monks throughout Southeast Asia to spread Buddhism. And many of his temples are still around today. They're beautiful buildings you can actually visit. The Gupta Empire came along about 500 years later. They had the great golden age of India. It was a period of artistic, intellectual, and scientific achievements. There was no war. You can't be a golden age and have war at the same time. It doesn't work that way. And during this age in ancient India, they came up with the decimal system, the number 0, wrote a lot of fables and folk tales, and they turned up a lot of medicines to help treat illnesses with natural herbs and things like that. Society, women were inferior and submissive. The upper class stayed home. The lower class worked in the fields, made cloth. A dowry was money given to the groom to get married, basically to pay the guy for taking your daughter and marrying her because you didn't want to take care of her anymore. A bindi, or with a red dot on the forehead, meant you were married, so you were off the market. Okay, if you were a young woman who had the red dot, it meant that don't come up to me because I have a husband. All the marriages were arranged marriages. And a sati was when the widows committed suicide by burning alive. In India, they cremate or burn their bodies because due to the monsoons, they don't do a lot of burying into the ground because there's a lot of mudslides and flooding, and you don't want your dead bodies floating up in the casket. So they believe in burning their bodies. This way they release the soul and it can go into another state of reincarnation. A sati is when the widow is supposed to commit suicide by throwing herself on top of her husband's burning body when they are cremating him. It's now illegal in India. They are not allowed to do that anymore. The family is the glue that keeps society together. Indian families are very tight, very well connected. They take care of each other and their future generations. You'll have many generations that live together as part of their extended family, and the oldest male rules the family.